This is part 2 of my series on getting live TV set up with a cord cutting scenario. And what I want to talk about now is how you set up the Plex server on your UnRAID server and how you get it to tune in live TV shows. I'm going to tell you how I set it up, what's involved. It's quite simple actually, and what I think of it. And I'll get to the conclusion at the end, but in short, at least for the short term, I don't think this is going to be my DVR solution. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. This particular solution is supposed to be able to replace my DVR in the house to watch my over-the-air broadcasts. So basically my network shows every night. Setting it up is pretty simple. In my case, I already had the Plex server set up, and you can see here's my Plex server plugin. It's running. It's been running for a long time. I've got a lot of my media files on there. It's been used to stream to the PS4 and the smart TVs throughout this house. Any movies I've got on there. So I put up sometimes some movies for kids. I back up my DVDs by ripping them and storing them on the server. Makes for easy access. And the UnRAID 6 server is just an all-around great media server for this particular purpose, especially when combined with the Plex server. So one of the things you have to do first and foremost is, if you want to use live TV, you can't use the free version of Plex. You have to actually subscribe to the Plex Pass. Now there's a number of pricing points for this. You can either spend a flat rate for a year. I think it's like $130, something like that. There's a lifetime subscription where you never have to pay again. Or since I'm currently really just evaluating it, there's a $5 a month plan, which is what I subscribed to see if this was going to work for me. So I subscribed to that $5 per month plan. You can see here I've got a shiny Plex Pass. So that's kind of what you get when you subscribe. And once it's subscribed, you can go over here and go over to your Plex media server, pull up the UI, and you got your shows that show up. But two new things show up over here, and that is you've got your recording schedule and your program guide. These are both new. You didn't have them before. To make that work, the first thing you need to do, and by the way, this pre-assumes you've already put, in my case, you need to put a tuner on your network. In my case, it was the HD Homerun Tuner, and it's connected to the antenna. If you're interested in what particular hardware I used for that, go ahead and look at the part 1 of this video, which I posted yesterday. So I go to settings here and go down to live TV and DVR, and you can see here I've got my HD Homerun Connect. I've already set this up, and it shows the address on my network. When you first come in here, that won't be there. You go ahead and add a device, and it'll go ahead and search your network for you, and it'll find it. Once it's on there, you can go to settings, and actually I'm going to come back to that one second. But once it's first set up, you can go ahead and scan for channels, and it found 67 local channels on my antenna. It's quite a bit. It enabled 43 of them, which means 43 of them had a strong enough signal to actually be useful and be able to watch shows. So those are the 43 channels that we'll actually download program information for. And that's this program guide here, and it's got a schedule that'll download that once a day. By default, the hardware I've selected, the HD Homerun Quattro, does not do any transcoding. It's got 4 tuners in it, which is fantastic because I can watch TV from multiple sets in the house over the same box, or I can record multiple programs at once. But it doesn't do any transcoding, meaning it's going to stream that program information at uncompressed, unencrypted, full quality to the TVs, which is great if you're viewing it live, but for recording it, it's kind of huge. And what I found out is if I didn't have any transcoding at all, the files were just so big that the A6 processor inside my UnRAID server just could not handle it when I went to play back the file and stream it later. And to be fair, when I even tried to play them back on my Core i7, it struggled a little bit too. The files are just tremendous. So one of the things you can do is, next to your HD Homerun Connect, you can go ahead and click on this little gear thing here. And by default, this transcoding is off. But what this is convert video while transcoding, and you set it to transcode. They do point out it's experimental. It saves disk space and improves compatibility. But the conversion requires a fast CPU. Now, The CPU in my system is not a slouch. It's an A6. It runs at about, I think, 3.5 or 4 gigahertz. But when transcoding 1 or 2 shows, that CPU is pegged at 100%. So that's something to keep in mind. So I'm going to back out of here. DVR settings. This is just default things for recording. Do you want to record minutes before default, minutes after the end? You can do it in enhanced program guide. Gives you a little bit more information. Makes refreshing slower. I'm going to come back to the post-processing script. And you can also increase the schedule for program guide refreshes. I find it's not really necessary. You get your program guide one time. And we'll talk about how the program guide works as well. Now what this post-processing script is for, if you want to enable that, there's people out there that have scripts that work with like Handbrake and whatnot that'll actually go through and strip out the commercials to your programming. So it'll be more like the Hopper. When you play it back, you don't have the commercials in there. If you want to run it on the Windows system, there's something called a program called MCE Buddy that'll do the same thing, but you have to pay for that. I haven't gotten far enough to experiment with this yet, and I'm not sure I'm going to on this particular platform, and I'll get back to that in just a moment. Okay, now moving on. That's the basic setup for your DVR. So we got tuners here. You can actually add more than one tuner. So if you wanted to tape 8 programs at once, in theory, you could add 2 HD Homerun Connects. And I really like the way this is set up. I really like the ease of setting this up. So basically, subscribe to Plex Pass. Go in here to the live TV and DVR setup. Add your device, scan your channels, turn on transcoding, set your DVR options. Probably the first time you're in here, go ahead and refresh your program guide. And that's it for the setup. From that point forward, you go back to your home screen and you've got your program guide. Now let's talk about this program guide. This is what's playing right now over the antenna for my particular area. So I've got all these programs. Now what I don't like about this is it shows me what's on right now, and I can scroll right and see more shows that are on right now. And most of them work. Occasionally I get to one that I can't seem to tune into the channel, and if that's the case, I can go in and disable that particular channel and I just won't have to see it again. And you'll learn that as you go. And not all antennas pick up everything, especially in digital. If the signal's too weak, it'll just say can't tune in. I then see episodes starting soon. Oops, back in there. And then I see down here new episodes tonight, upcoming shows. The problem is, like if I want to see what's on next Thursday at 8 p.m., it's not a grid. I can't find that. I mean, I got 2 options here. I can look at it like this. Look at the watch now. I mean, I can switch it over to a list if I want. Where is it? Yeah, let's go over here. Watch now. Movies on now. It shows me the number of channels that are available. But really, I got no traditional grid. Now, if you go to the support site for Plex, they do tell you that they're working on that, and they claim that their reason for not having it now is some people have patents on it and stuff, but I guess somehow they found a way around it, and enough people requested it that it was worthwhile for them to do. So they're working on that. When it shows up, we'll see. Now, I can either schedule a program recording, or I can just, like, if I want to tape Nova here, Killer Volcanoes, that sounds kind of interesting. I can just hover over it, click the little red button, and I get the record options. Okay, do I want to record just this episode or all episodes? Add it to the library. I'm going to add it to my TV shows and my recording location, which I've got 3 recording locations set up for that shows. My new shows, that by default, I just put into this particular folder. Okay. There's advanced options if I want, where I can only record high def. So if high def's not available, I won't record it. If I have a lower def version, I can overwrite that. That's kind of a nice feature. Allow partial airing. So if, let's say something runs late and only the second half's there, don't want to tape it or not. If I uncheck that, if I don't get the whole program, it doesn't tape. And the usual options, how many minutes before, how many minutes after, limit to particular channels, etc., etc. So I'll click record, and you'll see it's got a little dot there starting in 1 minute. It'll start recording that in 1 minute. Since I got 4 tuners, I can go ahead and take advantage of multiple recordings. I can say, okay, I want to record Family Guy if I want. I'm not going to do that right now. So once you set up your recordings, what you're going to want to do next is go over here to Recording Schedule. And you can see here, recording schedule. So I got Designated Survivor that was set to record yesterday. Actually, I had more than one program set to record yesterday, and I'll talk about that in a second. I could either play it from right here. Things set to today, there's that Nova show I just set up. I got the Orville starting at 9:01 tomorrow, and Chicago Fire starting at 10. Friday I got Blue Bloods, etc., etc. Over here it's got the recording priority, and you can see here for Hawaii Five-0, for example, it's still using the original Hawaii Five-0 box cover, Law and Order. And it goes down, and this is the priority of recording. So if you only had like 2 tuners available and there's 3 shows being taped, it would pick the highest 2 priorities. You can reorder these. So for example, if I want Orville to be my highest priority show, I just grab the little handle here and drag it up, and now that's my highest priority show. It's that simple. So other than the guide, the user interface and the setup is super, super easy. So why did I say I might not be using this? Well, part of it is it's unreliable. For example, I had 3 or 4 shows scheduled to tape tonight. I ended up with 1. I'm still trying to figure out why. Originally, I thought I had a reason, but I'm not so sure now because I don't know why it didn't tape tonight. Sometimes it tapes and it's flawless and it works great, and it works as good as any DVR I had with a better picture, and I can fast forward and rewind. Other times, it just doesn't start the recording at all. Other times, it records for 30 seconds and stops with a transcoder error. Sometimes it just says there's a transcoder error. And you can see here, Nova just started recording as I'm talking to this. That's good. And there'll be a little circle that goes around this as it goes. Here, recording, told you down there. Now here's the other issue. I can't actually, like I'm recording Nova now, I can't watch that as I'm recording it. So normal time shifting means I can start watching a program and then, or I can start recording a program and then start watching it 10 minutes later. Allows me to skip the commercials. Or just start late. But here, it records it, and it doesn't even put it in your, like, remember that TV recordings folder I had? It doesn't even put it in there. It puts it in a hidden folder called .grab. It's not hidden, you can find it. And it records into there, and then once it's done recording, it seems to go through a transcode process after. Sometimes I've seen shows show up 20 minutes after they finished recording. Other times I've seen them show up 2 hours after they're done recording. It doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason for how Plex is handling this, other than I think there's some issues. And then I've also seen issues where, for example, last night I had a program that was taping from 8 to 9 p.m. and this guy was all the way over, like it was completed, and it was like 5 hours later and it hadn't finished, and 2 programs behind it were still halfway done recording and hadn't finished. So it was almost like the entire thing had stopped, and the only way I could get the thing to pretend it wasn't recording anymore, it wasn't actually taping anything at that point, it was just frozen, and the tuners were locked, so I couldn't tune in anything else either. The only way I could get that to fix was to basically restart my Plex server, and of course then you lose the programs you were recording. So it's very unreliable. Now, I went to the support forums, that does seem to be a known issue and a bug, and it seems that if during the transcoding process the signal got a little weak, it doesn't seem to know how to handle it, and it just hangs and the whole thing just clogs up and you lose your recording. So something they know and they're working on, and that would be acceptable if this was an alpha or beta release, but it's actually a production release that you're paying money for every month. So again, can't recommend this yet, just strictly due to the reliability. I can live without, for example, the traditional time shifting. I don't mind waiting a couple hours after it records to watch it, because normally with my schedule, I end up waiting until the weekend to watch the show anyway. So that's not a problem. But not having the program ever available to me, that is sort of a problem. So again, Plex, I'm probably going to cancel the Plex Pass at the moment. The only other thing it's getting me is the ability to stream to mobile devices, which is nice. But it's not critical if I don't have the DVR stuff to go with it. The other option I have, well, let me show you this first. The HD Homerun Tuner has its own page here. You go to it, you type in the URL, And you can see here I got 4 different tuners, and it shows me here I have 1 tuner in use right now. Let me refresh this. There should be actually 2. I'll show you why. Okay, there's 2 tuners. Let me drag this over here. I've got an app showing television here right now. And of course the Plex server is taping a show right now. So there's the 2 channels I've got in the megahertz frequency. And I can drill down into various tuners and see the signal strength and whatnot. Back to my summary page. And you can get to this also by going to my.hdhomerun.com on your local machine, and then you can click on a link. But if I go back to Plex here, what I thought was happening with these tapes is I thought if I had pulled up an app on my smartphone, or if I pulled up the feed on a smart TV, or an app like this, I thought it was somehow screwing up the recording. But it turns out that's not the cause as far as I can tell. It just seems to be crashing on its own, and no rhyme or reason that I can discern at this point. So I'm hoping that the Plex engineers are working on that issue. So my other options right now are either just watch TV live and not tape it, which is likewise free, but in certain programs, like for example these CBS programs, I can get on CBS All Access anyway, which I'm already paying for. Or I can just, like this app here, this HD Homerun app that you get along with the tuner box. You download it. It's for your smartphone, for your Mac, for your PC. There's actually a DVR option in here that you can record to. And you can see no DVR configured. The reason for that is they want $35 a year for it. And that's great, and I'd like to assume it works. I haven't tried it yet, but I may be trying it very soon. The reason I didn't have this in consideration early on is the fact that this program needs to run either on a Mac or on Windows. I believe there's a Linux version, which I probably could try to work on the Plex server. But let's assume there's a Mac and Windows version right now. So I paid the $35 a year. That's another machine I have to keep running 24/7. Typically my gaming rig is running 24/7 for remote control and whatnot, so I could put it on there, or I could run a virtual machine on my Plex server. But the thing is, the other problem with this app is you have to be on the local network to watch programming. So like on my smartphone, like to watch live TV here, that wouldn't work. I don't have a remote connection into my network. Let me turn it down. Okay, so what I would have to do is have this recorded and have some kind of background job to take the recorded files and copy them over to the Plex server. So I may end up making another video between here and part 3 to show you how that's done. So part 2.5, can I do that? Part 2B, anyway. So that's where I'm at right now. That's how you set up this Plex server. And once the program's recorded, assuming it actually does finish its transcoding and doesn't lose anything, the content appears over here in the TV shows. So here's some of the things that I actually did tape, some of them experimental to try. For example, I don't actually watch Judge Mathis, but it was on and I wanted to tape it to see if it would actually make it. Some Hawaii Five-0, The Flash. So you can see clearly it is taping some things, but I'm running at about 50%, 60% of what I'm actually asking it to tape for it to show up. Things here like Star Trek Voyager, that was a box set that I had that I ripped and put in here. Same with all the Star Trek programming, with the exception of Discovery. I just ripped that off of, I've got CBS All Access, and I just made backup copies of that for here. And this is a series that's downloading now, Designated Survivor. So a lot of these are actually over-the-air tape sessions, so it does work kind of, sort of, maybe sometimes. But if I'm going to rely on my weekly programming where I'm gone for the week and I want to come back and watch shows with the family on the weekend, I sort of need a little more reliable than what I'm seeing with this Plex server. So if you've tried this, I'd be really curious to see what kind of luck you have and if you've solved any of these problems I'm having. In the meantime, I'm going to basically keep playing with it, but mostly I'm going to probably chalk up the Plex server with live TV as a failed experiment. Probably kill off the Plex Pass for now, and my next step will be pursue this HD Homerun software as a DVR and see if I can find some way to integrate that in with the Plex server. But so far so good with the cord cutting, and I'll be back to you soon with my next steps and how that works out. This video, I just wanted to point something out. I was talking about how unreliable some of the recordings can be on this Plex DVR. It is now almost 3:30 a.m. Remember that show I started taping earlier, about 2 when I started doing the recording here. Well, at 3:30 it still looks like it's recording. It really has not stopped recording, and at this point it should be transcoding, right? So let's go out and look at the status of this. Over here, and I click on the status icon. There's no alerts. It's not syncing anything. There's no conversion, so it's not doing any transcoding at all right now. The best I could do would be check the logs and see what's going on. Maybe I'll be surprised. Maybe in the morning this will have finished transcoding and it'll be ready to watch. But I think this is just another failure at this point. And if I go ahead and I check the status from the HD Homerun, you can see here I've got nothing recording at all. So essentially it's either transcoding or it's just frozen and it's stuck, which I think it's the latter. So unfortunately I think this using the Plex server's DVR is very buggy and unreliable right now. But I like where we're going with it, and I think at some point, once they get the kinks worked out, it'll be a good solution. But for now, I'm likely going to have to find something else to do. So I hope you're enjoying this series so far. If you do, feel free to click like. I've already gotten some feedback on the first video I posted this morning or last night. Oh, my time blends together. So I'd look forward to hearing more about this one as well. So this is Mike, and talk to you soon.